We have our very special guest from the south side of Australia. Peter Manuel has been a friend of our radio station now for over a year. And Peter is in the food business. And up here we call them, here in the stateside, we call them farmers. But he develops food for Australia and really kind of indirectly for people probably from all around the world. And Peter is involved in politics down in Australia, and he calls us from time to time and lets us know what's going on, and because what's going on in Australia will likely happen here. So, hi, Peter. How are you?
I'm really good, Dave, and yourself?
Doing really well. You had a busy day of content today. This evening they have a presidential debate on Fox Business. And so, you know, the politics are hot and heavy here in the States.
Yes, I look into American politics a little bit, and I see that Donald Trump is doing fairly well. Is that correct?
Donald Trump's doing well. Dr. Ben Carson is doing well, and below that we have Marco Rubio, and then Ted Cruz, and depending on depending on which poll you look at, then you have Jeb Bush and Carly Fiorina, and then it goes down from there. But it is getting into the thick of things. Hopefully this evening they have a couple of very good moderators, and they'll get into some very good topics. And for those that listen around the world, of course, they won't hear this, so scratch that. But Fox Business are going to be the people that are going to head it up, and they're probably a very good team to ask good key questions so the voters can make good decisions.
Yeah, I don't know whether I should be asking this, Dave, but those four that you just mentioned, Rubio and Donald Trump, Ted Cruz and Ben Carson, who are you warming to?
Well, my favorite one actually is Ted Cruz. And to me,
right.
he's the guy that has fought the battles in the Senate, and he's taken a lot of bullets from his own party as well as from leadership, but he's willing to fight the fight, you know, and represent his constituents relative to what he communicated when he ran for office. So, and he calls a spade, and he's called leadership and caught him in a lie. And you know what? If you don't want to be caught in a lie, don't lie. So I like that stance. I think he's trying to clean things up, and that's my favorite one. But I do like Donald Trump, and I like Ben Carson, and I like Carly Fiorina as well. So I would prefer to, other than Ted Cruz, I would prefer to have an outsider if it wasn't Ted Cruz.
No, that's a fair comment, and I think I agree with all those four that what you've said. And I suppose I've been looking at Donald Trump a little bit more these days, and when you actually see his full speeches and not some that the media have just taken tidbits out and all the rest of it, I do like what he says for sure. I think Ben Carson's a hell of a nice guy, and Ted Cruz and so forth, and Carly Fiorina. But to me, it's good to have a business person, somebody that knows how to do business. And I do like, at the moment, I'm really warming to Donald Trump. I think he comes across very well. There doesn't look like there's any palaver with it. He's been there and done a lot of things, and I just like the look of him at the moment. I really do.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. Tonight will be interesting because there is a little bit of back and forth between these Republican candidates, and we'll see how they make out. You know, it's to me, when you say negative things about a fellow competitor, I mean, I guess you have to do that, but I don't like that side of politics. I couldn't ever be a politician myself, and I think you're going to become one here in the near future. But you know, you have to be thick-skinned, don't you?
Yeah, look, Dave, I won't say a lot what's happened to me on air, but it gets pretty dirty. It's a situation where I think people are sick and tired of lip service. They're sick and tired of what comes out of these people's mouths, politicians or potential politicians. At the end of the day, action speaks louder than words, and I'd rather say not a lot and do something. And that's what people all around the world are really looking for, somebody that actually does something. Don't talk about it, do it. And I think we need people that go into politics that can't be a puppet. You've got to be very, very strong. You can't do deals behind closed doors. You've got to act in the best interest of we the people. And if you're just going to get in there and you're going to change from what you believe in, well, people are just going to say, you've got no credibility, no matter who you are. You told us this. You're doing something different. We don't trust you. And as you know, Dave, trust is earned. It's not given. You have to earn trust. You have to earn respect. It's not given. And the only way that you can do that is if you're going to say something, back it up. Otherwise, shut your mouth.
Yeah, and in politics, you know, and at least up here anyway, you're only as good as the last day that you have. I mean, it's dirty work. And, I mean, a friend of mine has run over 70 political campaigns up here in the States, and he's seasoned. He can deal with it. Nothing seems to bother him, but his mind is always clicking to the positioning that a politician needs to take place, or his politicians need to take place to win. And but I mean, I'm a spreadsheet guy. I write down all my thoughts and the important issues of what's going on in the country, and then I give my own thoughts the way that should be, and then I see which candidate aligns closest to that. That's how I make my decisions.
That's a good way to do it, Dave, a very good way to do it. Dave, if I can just bring up what's happened recently in New Zealand by the New Zealand government, which I think the New Zealand government have got to be absolutely congratulated here. Recently, they blocked a Chinese offer, and the Chinese wanted to buy one of New Zealand's finest food-producing properties. It's a 13,800 hectare brilliant food-producing property. And the New Zealand government blocked it and kept it in New Zealand hands. So New Zealand obviously know how important keeping control of your food bowl is. So I congratulate New Zealand government, because here in Australia, this government here is just selling our land willy-nilly. It is absolutely disgusting. And the government here, under Malcolm Turnbull at the moment, because we've got a new Prime Minister, who wasn't voted in by the people actually, he hasn't really done much at the moment, and we're just sitting back watching what he does. But he's talking about raising the GST over here, the goods and service tax. Now, it's currently at 10%, and he wants to put it over, allegedly put it over a broader spectrum and bring food into it. And my argument is pretty simple. We don't need to raise the GST here in Australia. What we need to do here in Australia, we need to get overseas government investors and big corporations that are buying up our agricultural land in huge tracts of land. Believe me, it's huge tracts of land. Pay tax in this country. These people are growing the food here, sending the food back to their country, and they're not paying tax here. So my message would be to Malcolm Turnbull, who's a banker, who's supposed to be a very intelligent man. I haven't met him myself. But Prime Minister, make overseas government investors and corporations pay tax here in Australia before you put another extra burden on the Australian people. We do not need to raise the GST.
Well, that makes sense. You know, but you're looking at it from a person that has hands-on experience for a lifetime of that, and a self-made individual. So you're going to think logically. So how is it going to play out?
Well, we've got to put real pressure on them, but you know, there's a lot more involved with what's going on here in Australia. You know, United Nations, which personally I think Australia should keep clear of. United Nations, and they won't like what I'm going to say here, but bad luck. United Nations are a non-elected committee, and you know, what are they doing around the world? What are they actually doing? Because I can tell you right now, if Australia kept right away from the United Nations, we could prosper a lot better. We don't need the United Nations to stick their nose in here. We really don't. And I don't think they need to stick their nose in any other country, to be quite honest. World Trade Organisation's another one. We've got a situation here, Dave, and I might have mentioned this to you before, where Australia now imports 90% of our liquid fuel. That is a disgrace. Our oil refineries have been shut down, and to me that is very, very scary. And another thing, we're already net food importers here on seafood and fruit and veg. And there's an old saying, you control oil, you control nations. You control food and water, you control the people. And we're not in a good situation here in Australia, believe me. We need to be building oil refineries again. We don't need to be importing 90% of our liquid fuel. And we need to be in control of our food bowl. We don't want other countries controlling our food bowl. So there's a lot of work to be done over here, Dave, and there's some good people running for the Senate and so on. I've been asked, but I've refused that, actually, to be quite honest. I'm working on some other things at the moment, and I won't divulge that on air. But the situation is over here in South Australia with this, at the moment, with this Labor government, and unfortunately our opposition, the Liberal government. I think over there your equivalent to our Labor government is the Democrats, and the Republicans are more of a Liberal government. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately here on our farms now, we've got, under this Labor government here, a right to take water levy, whether we use it or not, in our dams. So in other words, if you've got a water licence and you're storing water in your dam, you get charged a right to take water levy, whether you use that water or not. You get charged. This is disgraceful. This is taxing the rain that falls freely from the sky onto our properties. Now, the Liberal government, which used to look after the man on the land, supported this Labor government, and that's why we've got it. The Liberal government also supports meters on our dams. The Liberal government also supports low-flow bypasses on our dams that's going to be implemented shortly. Now, I don't know whether you've got these low-flow bypasses over there in America, Dave, but what these low-flow bypasses do actually stop water going into our dams because they want more water going to the environment. On my farm here in Strathalbyn, I'd be capturing 1% of the water that falls on my property. So I'm giving 99% to the environment. We have got too much fresh water at the moment going out to sea, ruining our seagrass. And yet we get all these warmists telling us that the sea level's rising. Well, if the sea level's rising, let's don't let so much fresh water go out to sea. Let's build more dams so this damn sea's not going to rise, so we can water our stock, which in turn feed the people. That makes a bit of common sense, wouldn't you think, Dave?
It does make common sense. You know, you've got a resource that you must have in order to do your food producing that you and your peers do, and water is huge, and you have an abundance that falls from the sky. The key is to be able to maintain and be able to take care of your crops and your livestock to where you can raise all of those things for the grocery store so people can eat, and also to export to make money so that the citizens can prosper. So it's beyond me that you have to fight this kind of issue in supposedly a free country. So you are less free because of this.
Oh, look, exactly right, Dave. And I'll just let you know, every Monday now, I'm down in front of Parliament House in Adelaide, South Australia, and we've got petitions made up, and we're getting our city friends now to sign these petitions opposing this right to take water levy on our farms. And the petitions now, and I'm only down there for a few hours Monday actually, but we've got over 3,000 signatures now in a very short time from our city friends who know how important it is to grow clean, healthy food in our state and our country, because, you know, we've had the privilege in our lifetime, Dave, of eating this clean, healthy food grown here in this state and this country, and we want to preserve that for future generations. And we talk about our national security. Well, our food security works hand in hand to our national security, because if we can't feed ourselves here in this country, and the other countries that are supplying us with food put sanctions on us, where does that leave us? It leaves us in a very vulnerable and dangerous situation. So we should not be selling our biggest money earner, agriculture, to overseas government investors or corporations, should not be selling it, because a huge debt that we've got here in Australia, the only thing that is going to pull us out of the muck and reduce our debt is agriculture. Our mining has declined, and agriculture is the only thing that we've got left. Our manufacturing's gone, our industry's gone, and why? Because a Liberal and Labor government over the years have not looked after we the people, and we haven't had fair trade. We have not had fair trade. We should have had tariffs on imported vehicles and imported food, so we can protect our own manufacturing and our own food producers here in Australia. And I think it's a damn disgrace that both the Liberal and the Labor government are to blame on this, have not looked after this country.
It's just you have to feel used, abused, and you just wonder where the logic is. I mean, so how do we get this fixed, Peter? I mean, what's the solution?
Look, Dave, it's nearly midnight, but being out the front of Parliament House on a Monday, I've never met thousands of people now, and I've never met so many people that look at Parliament House and their exact words are, I do not respect the people that are in that place anymore. None of them. They do not respect the Greens. They do not respect the Liberal Party. They do not respect our state government here, the Labor government. They have got no time for them. And they actually say to me, Peter, what can we do? And what we can do, Dave, is we've got an upper house here in South Australia. It's called the Legislative Council. And we need strong, like-minded people that can't be bought to actually look after the people. And when I mean look after the people, tear a lot of this rubbish up that's coming out of this Agenda 21, the agenda of the 21st century. And I think that goes into Agenda 30 now, which is absolutely scary. And this climate agreement that they want the countries to sign in Paris in December is the most controlling agreement ever. And I think that using the climate as their way of controlling the people of the world is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Our president that we have now, which I just have a very difficult time even listening to. I just can't stand the individual. He claims, Peter, that climate change is our number one priority, the issues of climate change. And we have the Muslim Brotherhood and all of these people coming across our border. Our southern border is wide open. And, we've got this Iran deal that's a disaster. And, we have other issues in this country. And this president claims that climate change is the number one concern. So these people like Barack Obama and others that are agreeing upon this world government is very scary. And the only way to, in my mind anyway, to stop it is to vote the correct people in office, that sees through all of this stuff. And we do have some candidates that are running. I would say all of the Republicans know about how much of a joke global warming is, and the positioning that the president and others are taking on this position.
Dave, you only have to look, and I think, a dear friend of mine, Lord Christopher Monckton, who I've got the utmost respect for, I really have, who was one of Margaret Thatcher's chief advisors. And I've had some really good chats with Lord Monckton, and he's got the facts, he's got the data to prove that there's been no global warming now for over 18 years. Another very, very astute geologist, Professor Ian Clymer, who's written his latest book, Heaven and Hell, and the one before that is Not for Greens. You can Google those. These guys have got the facts to prove that there's been no global warming for over 18 years. In actual fact, we're in global cooling. And I tell you now, global cooling is going to affect us more because you'll get less rain and nothing grows when things are too cold. And as for CO2, CO2 is not a poison. Without CO2, you can't sustain life. And what I say to anybody that's listening to this interview, don't listen to Dave Raaf, don't listen to Peter Manuel, don't listen. Do your own homework. You are intelligent people out there. You owe it to yourself to go back through history and have a look what's going on. And this is, climate is just a cycle. And if you go back through history, and I'll give you one example, Greenland. Why was it called Greenland? There was grass. 1,000 years ago, Greenland grazed cattle, sheep, and grew crops. 300 years later, a mini ice age. That's why it's in the situation it's in now. We've got people like Al Gore. Have a look at his dud predictions. What a joke. Have a look at Professor Tim Flannery. Have a look at his dud predictions. I mean, allegedly he told us that we weren't going to get, the eastern states in Australia weren't going to get any rain in 2010, 2011. We got floods. The sea level's rising. He's allegedly bought a place on the Hawkesbury River. He said the river was going to, sea level was going to rise by 8 stories. How do people listen to these guys? How do these guys get paid the money they're getting to put fear into people of the world? As far as I'm concerned, these people should be locked up.
I'm with you, Peter. They need to be locked up, exposed, and we got to teach every day. We got to teach every single day to the citizens that are just naive about what's going on, and let them know, what these people are all about. And I think we're slowly getting there, but man, we got to pick up the pace, don't we?
Oh, we certainly do, and we've got good people out there that are not frightened. As I've just said, Lord Christopher Monckton, Professor Ian Pliner, another good friend of mine. And look, I'm not saying this to name drop at all, Dave, but these people I've really got to know and respect. Professor David Flint, who's written a book or co-authored a book, Give Us Back Our Country, with John Martinkovitz. These people are decent people, but we know why they're pushing this global climate change rubbish, because it's about control, because they can make people that don't know, that don't look back through history, make people feel guilty, because they've tried every other trick in the book and it hasn't worked. But now, climate. Can you tell me, if we make a price on carbon again, and I think we had here when the Labor government were in $23 a tonne, so if we double it, how's that going to change the climate? If we're going to make it $1,000 a tonne, how's that going to change the climate? What weather are we going to get, Dave?
It's not going to improve anything. That's the thing. When they want to charge a tax on emissions, it doesn't do anything, but it builds wealth for those that are involved in the scam of putting this together. The citizens, it does nothing for the citizens. It does nothing for the workers. It doesn't make more rain. It doesn't, it doesn't help the decision makers in China to be more, to build plants that do not exhaust as many emissions. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't control the mind. All it does is it enriches a very few, and they get money from many, and it's just a shame. It's just a total scam.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. Another thing, we've got land care over here, and we got told years and years and years ago, plant trees. I've got beautiful, big, old, majestic gum trees on my property, and I love them. But we got told years, we've got to plant more trees, and get more rainfall. Trees create rain and all the rest of it. Well, now they're telling us with all these trees that we've planted, we're going to get less rain. So hang on, what's going on here? Did you hear that, Dave? I just said land care years ago was planting in all these trees, and I'm for trees, don't worry, because, we want to increase our rainfall. But hang on, we've planted all these trees, And now they're telling us that because of global warming, we're going to get less rain. Well, I thought trees were supposed to encourage rainfall.
Yep, and I appreciate you repeating that. I couldn't tell if I lost you or not, but trees take water, and then I wonder where these people go to think up all this kind of stuff. I just wonder. I can see that if you have a tree farm or something like that, or you're trying to have where you need to replenish the trees that you cut down for timber or other things, I can see where you need to replace those. But to force people to do certain things and control every decision that they make on their farms, not knowing the full extent of what a food producer has to go through, it's just asinine. Asinine.
I've got a situation too with Flag Australia that I set up, Food Producers Landowners Action Group Australia, that I set up nearly 5 years ago now, and we've got members from all over Australia. We had a situation a few years ago, Dave, where a couple of farmers rang me and said the Department of Water have estimated the water in their dams, and they said it's just ridiculous. Our dams are not that big. So anyway, I went out and saw these people, and I said, no, you're right. And I said, have you got the money to get a water surveyor in and accurately measure the water in this dam? And they said, no, we haven't. So Flag Australia put up some money, and with the Honourable Anne Bresington in those days when she was with the Legislative Council, she's out of politics now, and we got this particular dam, one of these dams, accurately measured. The Department of Water were 1 million gallons out. They overestimated the water in this dam by 1 million gallons. So they are telling us we have got more water in our dams than we're actually holding. And this is an absolute disgrace, Dave, a disgrace.
I mean, it's a disgrace, but it's comical, isn't it?
And another thing, the way they come out and measure them, they've got satellite imagery and they do the surface water. But have a listen to this, Jake. I had another guy ring me, and he's probably about an hour and a half drive from my property, and he said, Peter, please can you come out? The Department of Water have said that my dam is 6.2 megalitres. And I went out and had a look, and I said, Phil, you'd be lucky to be 4. It'd be lucky to be 4. But in the Western Mount Lofty Ranges where this property is, if you have a 5 meg dam or greater, you need to licence it. And I said to him, I think you'll get a good result today. So these two guys, actually a guy and a girl, come out with little fishing rods, mind you, little fishing rods with a sonar device at the end, and they cast out and they reel it back in. And they say, here's the depth, here's the depth. And I said to this guy, Dave, his name was Dave as well, and I said, Dave, look, there's been tests done on these sonar devices in a swimming pool, clear water and a hard surface, and there's 1.5 metre difference between two sonar devices. And then I explained to him about how the department overestimated the water in the dam, not far from this particular property that I was on, by 1 million gallons. Anyway, they were there for about 3 hours. Now, just bear in mind what I said earlier, that they said that this particular dam was 6.2 meg. And in the Western Mount Lofty Ranges, a 5 meg dam or greater, you need to be licensed. Well, guess what happened that day? They did the calculations and they went up to Phil and they said, Phil, you're lucky. It's 4.8. If I wasn't there, Dave, it would have come in over 5 meg and they would have had to have a licence.
Wow.
So, unfortunately, there's people out there that don't know about us and they will be screwed left, right and centre. But I can tell you now, in South Australia here, Agenda 21 policy is being rolled out big time, and we're the worst state in Australia. We have the highest taxed state in Australia. We have the highest unemployment now, more unemployment than Tasmania, and Tasmania's population is only 500,000. We have the highest unemployment in Australia. We have the highest electricity in the world. Who in the heck would want to come and do business here? If we don't get rid of this ridiculous environmental rubbish that is going on in this state, believe me, I don't know where we're going to end up. And they're implementing this rubbish so quick it's not funny. And our opposition is just as bad. We need big change here, I can tell you, Dave.
Well, you do, and you're out there fighting the fight for the citizens. I mean, do you find that the other food producers are with you on this, Peter? I mean, are you the workhorse?
You've got to, look, I've helped out a lot. I don't like to say but Flag have helped out a lot of food producers. I can't go into something that I helped out a guy yesterday. We've kept him out of the environmental court, and we've got a reasonable outcome, and I can't say any more about it because the commissioner was involved and so on, and the council and lawyers and all the rest. But I come home with a fairly hefty headache yesterday, and we do all this for nothing. We're voluntary. Flag Australia is a voluntary organisation, and we help fellow citizens out for nothing. Not just farmers, because FLAG stands for Food Producers Landowners Action Group Australia. Landowner is anybody with a house, because the Natural Resource Management Board, we all pay a natural resource management levy on our council rates. So what this mob, this draconian mob, and with their draconian laws that are enforcing on farmers, they can force on the people in the city. And that's why we're down in the city now, because that's where the votes are, Dave, and that scares hell out of the government and the opposition, because they say, oh yes, you know, the country, the farmers or the food producers, there's not many of them. Well, 80% now of our signatures on opposing this right to take water levy on our farms, 80% of the signatures now are our city friends. So I suggest that this Labor government and the opposition really start to wake up with what's going on, because people have had a complete gutful.
Wow. Well, it's impressive.
Just another little thing before I go, Dave, because I don't want to hold you up any longer, is we were talking about trees just a while ago. What's happening here with this environmental movement is we're not planting trees. They're planting low-density bush scrub. Why? Because we have bigger fires, hotter fires, so they can push their climate change rubbish. Climate change does not cause bushfires. Do you know what causes bushfires, Dave? 3 things: lunatics, lightning strikes, and the odd accident. Climate change does not cause bushfires.
And controlling the lunatics is the toughest one, isn't it? You can't do anything about lightning per se.
Do you know where most of the lunatics are?
Where are they?
In politics.
There you go. You're absolutely right. What else? What else do you want to get out there?
Just real quick, what's come up recently here in South Australia, and this is a joke, we've got new bike laws now, push bike laws. But these guys that get out there and girls and their Lycra and all the rest of it, and that's fine, no problems at all, I haven't got a problem with that. But now there's been a law passed that they can ride their bikes on the footpaths. Now you imagine on the footpath, if you're an old person who can't hear properly or can't see properly, or what about blind people with their guide dogs walking the footpaths? These bikes are on our footpaths now, and cars in the city have got to stay a metre away from them, and on country roads 1.5 metres. So now we've got vehicles and trucks having to pass these bike riders, going over double lines to pass them because they've got to keep 1.5 metres away. These bike riders should have number plates, should be registered, and should have to pay third-party insurance because they are a menace on our roads. And now they're on our footpaths. And this law has only been passed recently. It is a joke what's happening here.
Wow. I feel for you. I really do. I mean, you're probably 3 years or maybe 5 years in front of us, unless we're able to get some good politicians in at the top level to slow all this government takeover down, this Agenda 21 crap. Stop the lunatics. And I mean, not all politicians are lunatics. They're not. But the ones...
I know exactly. I agree.
It's the ones that want to get money for nothing and act like they're doing you a big favor or doing the citizenship a big favor, by charging these fees. And in reality, all they're doing is enriching themselves and costing the people. It's like the medieval days, isn't it?
Look, it's history repeating itself, Dave.
It is. Well, Peter, as always,
Dave, if I can,
go ahead.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
If I can just finish off by saying to your listeners, once in your life, you're going to need a teacher, a policeman, a doctor, or a lawyer. But 3 times a day, every day, you'll need a farmer.
Well said.
Dave, thank you very much. I've got to shoot off. Can I just say that, to give me the opportunity to come on, I really appreciate it. This is not just a South Australian issue, what we talk about. This is worldwide. Honestly, people, you owe it to yourself. Don't believe what the mainstream media are telling you. You're intelligent enough, do your own homework, and you'll wake up. You really will, because if you don't wake up, we're in serious trouble. So, look, Dave, you do a fantastic job. All the people that you have on your show, Kelly Carlson and Jeff and all the others, really appreciate what you're doing for us to get the word out there. And you keep safe, mate, and you look after yourself, and all the best.
You do the same, Peter. We appreciate you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Manuel from the south side of Australia, a half a world away from here at the Bagnell Dam Strip right in the middle of Missouri. Peter Manuel, everybody. Thanks for doing what you're doing, Peter.
And you too, Dave. Keep up the good work. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.